Welcome, everyone, to the MongoDB Podcast Live. I'll be your host today, Jesse Hall, and joining me today is Karthik Kalyanaraman. I'm sorry for butchering your last name. He is coming to us from Langtrace, and so we have a great discussion lined up for us today. He's the co-founder and CTO of Langtrace AI, and we're going to discuss how engineering teams are building reliable AI products, but they're doing things a little bit differently than the rest. And we also are going to dive into what modern AI ops stacks look like for high-performing AI engineering teams. So looking forward to this. Karthik, give us a quick background. Who are you? Where did you come from? And what do you want to talk about today?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here, Jesse. It's a pleasure. My name is Karthik. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Langtrace AI. Langtrace is a open source LLM application observability platform. Prior to Langtrace, I was at Coinbase. I was the engineering lead for the observability team at Coinbase, and been in the industry for like close to 10 years. Graduated with a master's degree in computer engineering from Texas A&M University. Started my career at VMware building on-premise software. Worked at a few YC startups along the way. Done 0 to 1 a bunch of times, and also solved problems at scale at companies like VMware, HP, and Coinbase. So that's kind of my short background.
Yeah, it seems like the typical startup background for the majority of it, right? So tell us a little bit then about Langtrace. What is the high level, like what is Langtrace?
Yeah, in very simple terms, Langtrace helps developers figure out what's happening in their AI stack. So as we all know, LLMs are very popular, and a lot of developers have started adopting LLMs for building either features in their existing products, or they are building fully AI powered products. One of the challenges with building with LLMs is its non-deterministic nature, and Langtrace kind of helps you understand what's happening behind the scenes, because if you query a model 10 times with the same question, there is no guarantee that it's going to give the exact same response
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And you would want to exactly know what's happening, and what response the model is giving and why it's giving a particular response, to basically understand and improve the accuracy of your product. And that's kind of where Langtrace comes in and helps you out. Langtrace is fully open source. It's built on top of open telemetry standards. In simple terms, again, what it means is we have two components. One is the Langtrace SDK. We have support for Python and TypeScript. And we also have the Langtrace client, where you visualize all your traces, sort of like a dashboard. Because we are built on top of open telemetry standards, you could adopt Langtrace just using the SDK and send the traces over to like another open telemetry compatible observability vendor, which most of the observability vendors are today. So that's kind of what Langtrace is all about.
Nice. So we'll dive a little bit more into the details of Langtrace, but let's talk a little about like how you got to Langtrace, because I think there was quite a bit of a journey from where you came from Coinbase, HP, VMware, etc., and then there was a bit in between that and Langtrace. So let's talk a little bit about that. What was the origin story of Langtrace?
Yeah, so great question. So we started the company back in 2022. Me and my co-founder, we used to work at Coinbase prior to starting Langtrace. Like I said, we were part of the team that was responsible for doing observability and maintenance on all the blockchain nodes. So essentially, it's a key piece of infrastructure that accepts all the transactions flowing into Coinbase and broadcasts them over to the public blockchain. So the criticality of this piece of infrastructure is such that if any of the nodes go down, like let's say Ethereum node goes down, none of the Coinbase customers would be able to send and receive Ethereum over Coinbase. So because blockchains are built on different standards, like Typically in traditional software stack, you have standards, like proper standards around tracing and telemetry and whatnot. But in the case of blockchain, every crypto token is built differently, and because of that, the standards did not exist. So it was a lot of fun to um, do observability for this piece of infrastructure where standards did not exist and tooling was like far and few. We had to use tools that were built for the Web 2 world to help us with doing observability for blockchains. So our key insight here was why not go build like observability that is like custom made for the blockchain world,
Mhm.
right? So that's kind of how we got started back in August of 2022. We left Coinbase, we raised a seed round from Redpoint Ventures, and we started the company. Over the course of close to like 12 to 15 months, we built a product, and around the same time ChatGPT launched. And like every developer out there, I was like pretty excited. Our entire
Mhm.
team was like pretty excited to get hands on it. Copilot came about. We started using Copilot. So within our observability product for blockchains, we built a couple of features. One is a chatbot. So essentially, what we did at that time was we built a RAG system because
Mhm.
all blockchain software was open source. We kind of like semantically chunked the open source code, ingested them into a vector database, put like an LLM on top of it, and
Mhm.
exposed a chatbot in our product. That's one thing. And secondly, for the logging layer within our observability product, we had this idea where, because every blockchain is different, not like if a person is managing 10 different blockchains, there's no chance that they would be able to tell exactly what's happening if they see an error or a warning in the logs. Looking at scale, like Scale 3 was the name of the company at the time, looking at Scale
Mhm.
3's observability platform. So we had this idea where, what if we could just use the same rack system and exactly pinpoint based on the code around that particular line of code where the log line is being emitted, and give like a general idea as to why that particular error or warning could appear, right? So
Mhm.
we built another feature within our observability platform. So there, all of a sudden, there were two features that were powered using OpenAI's GPT 3.5 at that time. And with a lot of excitement, we launched it. We saw a bunch of users start to use it, and after a few weeks, we kind of like did a bunch of user interviews, and what we got to know was some of our users said it's amazing, some of our users said like it's outright wrong and it's like
Mhm.
hallucinating, and we had no clue why that was happening, right? So
Mhm.
that's when we, being observability experts ourselves, that's when we kind of like realized, oh, we need eyes into this thing. Like we needed exactly, we needed to know exactly what was going into the model and what was like coming out of the model. Not just that, we also needed to know what was being queried on the vector database and what was being retrieved from the vector database, the top case settings, all the other settings that we wanted to get a general understanding of how to like tune the settings for the vector database, at the same time how to optimize the prompts that we were using. So
Mhm.
internally we built a duct taped solution, like an SDK of sorts based on open telemetry standards, and we started ingesting them into our Grafana dashboards. And that was like pretty handy. As soon as we started seeing what was happening, we started like tweaking with the prompts, we started iterating on the vector db settings, we started improving it, and within like few weeks we were able to like measure the accuracy. First of all, we were able to like baseline the performance of the chatbot as well as the logging feature, and we were able to like improve the performance or the accuracy of these two features quite significantly. That's we just like told the story to other developers out there who are also building with AI, and they were like very curious and they wanted to like get hands on top of this. So we thought, okay, maybe we'll just like expose this as a product,
Mhm.
and it made sense to like open source it, because like it's built on top of open telemetry standards, and for a
Mhm.
product like this, it makes a lot more sense to be open source to get the adoption from the community. Cut to like February of 2024, which is last year. We took about like a couple of months to like productionize all of this and expose it as an open source code. We exposed it, and that's how Langtrace came to be. And since then, we have started natively supporting like all the popular vector database providers and database providers, including MongoDB, as well as all the popular AI models out there from major labs as well as open source models. And we have like been adopted by like companies of all sizes, small, medium, large. We have like a SaaS offering with a pretty generous free tier, and we also have like the open source, which can be self-hosted. So that's kind of
Nice.
the background behind how Langtrace came to be.
Nice. That's it's really an amazing story because you're building observability for blockchain and using AI to help you build that, and then realizing that AI needs observability too, and you're kind of digging down this rabbit hole of needs. And this is really like where most products come from. A developer seeing like, oh, there isn't like I need this thing. I need to build this custom tool for myself. But then you realize, oh, other developers might benefit from this tool too. Let's put it out there in the world and see where it goes. So that's really like an origin story that I think most tools come from, is just a need that a developer had. That's awesome. And then you talked about standardizing the unstandard, like what's not standard in blockchain, but also you think about in AI, there's there are some standards, but like for the most part you don't know what you're going to get back from the AIs. And
Exactly.
so understanding what is coming back, that's amazing. And so back to the problems that Langtrace really solves, like what if you have to boil it down to a nutshell, like what is Langtrace, the problem that it's solving?
Yeah, so great question. So just to set some context here, pre-LLM era, obviously, like I'm going to exclude the ML engineers because ML engineers have dealt with this problem
Yeah.
like ever since. But most of software engineering was deterministic in nature. So you build systems through logic, and anytime errors happen, exceptions happen, you can reason about those issues through logic. Okay, there is a condition missing here, or there is a stack overflow happening. You can, for the most part, figure out why a particular issue is happening, and you can deterministically fix that bug. The only thing that was missing there is like a system that is needed to tell you that there is a bug happening, right? So pre LLM era, observability as a space was more reactive in nature, in the sense that you wouldn't necessarily need observability while you're developing the product. So when you're developing the product, obviously you would write unit tests, integration tests, you will like test it out pretty robustly, and then like you would take it out to production. But as soon as it's in production, you want a system that like constantly monitors your product and alerts the on-call engineers anytime something goes wrong, right? So that's kind of what observability was all about. As soon as LLMs came about, where like it was like complete democratization just by using like an API key. Anybody had access to this large language models using which you could build like pretty powerful products that are powered using natural language. One of the key changes that all the developers had to adapt to was to like build around a non-deterministic system, which is the model itself. Which means while you are developing, traditional unit tests would fail on the face of it. You would have to like figure out a way to like test the product while you're developing it. And even so, like even if you have like iterated and optimized the prompt to the best of your ability for getting the most reliable outputs from the model, as soon as you take it out to production, there is like not a good chance that you would have covered all the scenarios that your users are going to like interact with your product, right? So what you needed was what you need actually is a tool that kind of like helps you along the journey of developing as well as productionizing. It's more of a journey, it's more of an operational journey of building a highly reliable AI powered product, rather than like just building it once, deploying it to production, and then like maintaining it, which is the kind of notion that most developers had pre LLM era. uh, Coming back to Langtrace here, how Langtrace helps is during your development. Langtrace, first of all, is like very easy to get started. It's just like 2 lines of code. Our philosophy is that as a developer, you should have most of the time focused on building the product rather than instrumenting key metrics from your from your product stack. So we are built on top of OpenTelemetry, which means like we patch your libraries at runtime and extract all the key metrics and traces. It has its own pros and cons in the sense that you don't get a lot of control as to which traces and which metrics you would want to instrument. But at the same time, because we build on top of the semantic standards set by Open Telemetry Committee, it should suffice for majority of the scenarios. So again, like it's just 2 lines of code. Once you set it up, as you develop your product, every time there is a API call made to the model, Langtrace traces that. It gives you like a good looking dashboard that shows you exactly what was the system prompt, what was the input that was going in, and what was the output coming from the model. And as a developer, while you are developing it, you have this tendency to like test your product while you're developing it, right? So obviously, like it can quickly go out of hands if you're developing with AI, because you would like test it out 5 times today and then like it just works fine, and all of a sudden overnight the model updates. Tomorrow, like you would test again with the exact same settings in the prompt and you wouldn't exactly get the same response back, right? So the challenge here is operationalizing the problem, and that's what Langtrace helps with. Like it not only like trace the invocations, but also on top of that you can score the traces, which is what we call as evaluations. You can manually score them, and we kind of like recommend manually scoring them while you are developing it, even though it's not a scalable way to do it. At least you get a way to like look at where the issues are happening, what the error scenarios are, and you can score them. You can baseline the performance, and while you are doing it, you would get a like a general sense of like what the accuracy looks like over time. And once you have optimized your prompt, the model settings and whatnot, you would get to a point where you would say, okay, this is like a good amount of accuracy that I have. I have decent confidence that I can take this product out to production. So there's like you wouldn't generally want to wait until you achieve 99% accuracy, because 99% accuracy in your own internal testing may not be exactly the same when you take it out to production. So once you take it out to production, again, Langtrace continuously like traces all the interactions. You as a developer can like continue to like score them, figure out what the baseline looks like compared to what was the baseline that you determined while developing. Go back, tweak all the settings, prompts, and whatnot. Take it back to production again. So this is the process that needs to be set up, and the tooling around it is what Langtrace like strives to provide to the developer.
That's where you find all those edge cases. When you put it out in production, you start seeing how users actually interact with it, and then kind of go back and forth. And it's like you said, it's a whole production cycle. You just keep going through it, right?
Yeah.
And so obviously, like accuracy, that's one of the most like top of mind things for an engineer. What are some of the other stats that come back? I'm assuming like token usage, latency. Like what else do you have at your fingertips there within Langtrace?
Yeah, so token counts is a big one, and cost of model, again, another big big one. Latency, like there are two kinds of metrics around latency: time to first token and tokens generated per second in the case of streaming. So both those metrics we surface. In addition to that, we also surface all the metadata around the API calls that are being made. In the case of like models, we surface all the metrics, all the settings of the model, like the model name, obviously, the model vendor, the temperature settings, the top P, top K, all those settings, if you have set any of those. In addition to that, we also trace both the inputs and the outputs that are coming out of the model. Not just models, but we also trace vector databases. Obviously, we trace MongoDB. So in the case of MongoDB, for instance, we also trace the query settings. In the case of Atlas Vector Search, we trace the pipeline settings, and also the results that are being retrieved from the model itself. Like optionally, you can set it up such that the results are also being retrieved. Along with it, you can also set it up such that you can retrieve the embeddings itself, so that you can do some replays to figure out like what exactly is going on. In addition to all of this, like I mentioned, you can score the traces, you can score the model traces, you can score the vector database traces. So we also surface the metrics around scores, like the baseline performance, how it's like a trend line as to like how it has like improved or regressed over time, all of that.
Nice. So a little bit of a debate here. So you talked about LLM engineers and there's ML engineers, and then there's this debate about what is an AI engineer. What is your take on what is an AI engineer?
Yeah,
in a modern stack?
Yeah, I mean, like it's a loosely defined term right now. In my mind, an AI engineer is someone, first of all, who is someone who is on top of the industry at all times, because the industry is like moving really fast under your feet,
Hmm.
with the latest and greatest of the models and database technologies that are coming out there. So someone who stays on top of it. In addition to that, someone who really understands the process of building with AI, who makes the
Hmm.
right trade-offs, who is like it might sound a little bit cliche, but who is good at like prompt engineering,
Hmm.
who's also good more than prompt engineering, who is also very good at context engineering. I would say like knowing how to bring the right amount of context to the model at the right time is like a key
Hmm.
skill that is like slowly evolving, and nobody has the right answers. Like obviously frameworks like LangChain and Vercel AI SDK and Mastra, all these frameworks help you a lot to context engineer the product that you're building with LLMs. But you as an engineer still need to figure out for your specific subjective use case how much context should I be bringing in, and thirdly, what does your architecture look like if you're building an AI
Hmm.
agent, which is what like all the buzz is about right now.
Hmm.
Do you just go with like a single reasoning model and give it like all the tools that are needed, like give it all the freedom to like just pick the right tool at the right time just with the prompt and
Hmm.
execute in a while loop until it achieves the goal? Or do you have like a little more of a sophisticated a setup where like you have like a model that reasons and comes up with a plan and delegates it to another action model that kind of like has access to all the tools? Uh, it depends. The answer really
Hmm.
depends. There is no like right answer. Like
Yeah.
we are just like 2 years old as an industry with AI right now, so it's a great time to be building. At the same time, it's a lot of questions out there.
Yeah, things change daily, but I think you hit the nail on the head. I think an AI engineer is someone who builds with AI, and
Yeah.
so I also think that Langtrace is one of those key tools that an AI engineer has in their tool belt. Like that's one of the things that we need. Like, don't just build something and put it out there and hope that it works. We need to observe it and make sure that it's working properly, etc.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about. I see on the website it mentions enterprise grade security, SOC 2, Type 2 certification, etc. It's like you talk a little bit about the security that Langtrace has.
Yeah, so first of all, we are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. In simple terms, what it means is we have all the controls set up properly, in the sense that access to key systems, production systems, go through like a access review process, like a ticket needs to be raised. Even though we are
Mhm.
a very small, lean team as a startup, you do have this tendency to just like go let anyone have access to production systems. But SOC 2 Type 2 ensures that you are staying compliant and you follow the processes. The processes exist for a reason. So all of our systems are protected from production access. It goes through like proper like timelines for granting access, ticketing systems, and whatnot. And also all the systems are monitored, which is another requirement. Uh, Good observability around all the systems that we have. We also do pen testing to make sure like there are no vulnerabilities. We follow all the web standards to make sure like all the authentication systems, DDoS protections, and everything are like put in place. In addition to that, one other key component of SOC 2 Type 2 is the vendors that you pick to build your product should also be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. So
Mhm.
all the vendors that we have picked are like high quality vendors, including MongoDB, of course. Like all of them are SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. It's kind of interesting the way the compliance works. Like even if you pick even one vendor who is not SOC 2 type 2 compliant, it kind of like falls over you. Like
Mhm.
you also become non-compliant. So we have made sure like all the vendors are like high quality vendors that have like proper controls put in place. That essentially what SOC 2 type 2 compliance means. Like it means you are ready for to be onboarded by an enterprise.
That's a good call out. You're only as secure as your weakest link. So
Yeah.
make sure that all the vendors that you're working with have the same security standards and go from there. Amazing. We kind of glanced over this, but like let's define what is AI ops.
Yeah, great question. So AI ops is an evolving term, but having said that, AI ops is basically how do you operationalize building with AI? Like as an
Mhm.
AI engineer, Obviously, number one, I need to know how to build with AI, but beyond
Mhm.
that, what should the process look like for me to like build a product from 0 to 1, take it
Mhm.
out to production, and continuously improve the accuracy. And accuracy is more of a journey rather than accuracy and reliability, performance. All of these things in the AI stack is more of a journey than like a destination. Even if you are close to 99% accuracy, there's no guarantee that it's going to stay that way. Right.
Mhm.
So, what sort of processes do you put together in order to make sure you are like treading that journey safely without any issues on a day-to-day basis is generally what AI ops means in my opinion. And what are the key components of AI ops, right? So
Mhm.
obviously model, that's like the core of it, but beyond model, having like guardrails around models, just make sure it's not giving out responses that it shouldn't be giving out. Having observability, like to know what exactly is happening. And even within observability, in some cases you could be building on top of sensitive information like financial data or like medical records, right? So in those scenarios, how do you trace information without actually revealing sensitive information about your customers, right? So you need to de-anonymize, or rather anonymize information in such a way so that only the traced outputs contain only the inputs and outputs going into the model, and doesn't
Mhm.
identify doesn't have any information that identifies customers uniquely.
Yeah.
And beyond that, evaluations is a big piece. Like how do you evaluate your system, and where do you strike the balance between manually evaluating versus like all the techniques that are available to automatically evaluate your system. When do you jump in, when do you not jump in? So this in my mind is basically what your AI ops is, and what sort of uh, vector databases that you choose in case you're building like a RAG based setup. Even
Mhm.
things like agentic search, you still need vector databases, right? So
Mhm.
and how do you set up a system around your database too? Like how do you optimize for retrieval techniques, as well as all the settings that you use to like retrieve from a vector database? Like when do you decide to change them, when do you decide to like tweak them? So that's kind of what AI ops generally means.
Yeah, so like in a like a easier to explain is basically DevOps for AI, where you've
Yeah.
got all of these things like how do we deploy this thing, how do we observe it, how do we test it, all of those things that I hate doing, honestly, is in that career path of AI ops. Awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we've talked about Langtrace a lot here. Let's show it off. Let's take a look at. I think you have a quick demo. Let's take a
Yeah.
look at it and see how easy it is to work with.
Yeah.
Let me know when you're ready for me to share your screen.
Yes, I am ready.
Okay, there we go. All right, walk us through this.
Yeah, so on the screen, what you're looking at is the Langtrace dashboard. So we have like a bunch of projects in here. So let me go ahead and create a brand new project. So before I do this, in this demo, what we are going to do is we are going to set up like a very simple MongoDB Atlas vector search query on top
Mhm.
of the mflix dataset, which
Mhm.
MongoDB comes with. Like pretty easy to get started. You just like sign up for MongoDB, set up a cluster, automatically it loads the mflix dataset. So it's like pretty seamless there. So what we are going to do is we are going to index the data set on like it has like all the movie information. Like each row within that collection is a movie that has
Mhm.
like a plot, it has like a title, and it has like bunch of other metadata information.
Mhm.
So we have written a simple Python script that queries this data set using MongoDB's vector search capabilities. And when you query, obviously, like it's a cosine similarity.
Mhm.
It calculates the embeddings for your query. It calculates the distance between your embedding and all the embeddings that are out there in the dataset, and it picks the top 100 of them and gets the top 50 out of that 100,
Mhm.
and gives the results back. So this is generally useful if you're building like a chatbot, for instance, for say customer support use cases, wherein like you would have to ingest all the information about all the documentation that you have and put a chatbot in front of it. So let's
Mhm.
dive in, right? So how do you observe a system like this using Langtrace? That's what we are going to see. So I'm just going
Okay.
to give it a name, podcast demo.
Mhm.
So description, we can just leave it as such. Project type can be default, just create a project. So the project is created. So you go into the project. Like I said,
Mhm.
it's very simple to get started with Langtrace. So it's just like 2 lines of code,
Mhm.
and we also provide you with a sample initialization code over here. So all you
Mhm.
need to do is install Langtrace and generate an API key. So we're going to jump in and create a API key,
And
copy
just
the
to re
API. Yeah.
and just to reiterate quickly, Python or TypeScript, that's the two SDKs, right?
Exactly. Good
Mhm.
call. So we have support for both Python and TypeScript. So in this case,
Nice.
we're going to be using Python.
Okay.
So we generated the API key. We have copied it. So this is the code that I have. So as you can see, this it's a very simple code. This is where Langtrace is initialized. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the API key over here.
Mhm.
We are using a model from OpenAI, and PyMongo is initialized here.
Mhm.
And we have like a function that generates embeddings for a query, for a given query. And here, this is the meat of it. So we initialize the database client. We get a access to the embedded movies collection. We write a
Mhm.
simple pipeline. What this pipeline does is, on this index, we have created an index called vector index. On this index for this path, so this is the path of each. Like plot embedding is basically like a property within every row.
Mhm.
And for this path, here's the query. So we are just going to query for time travel. That's the word that we are going to query. So it's just going
Okay.
to pick all the expectation here is it's going to pick all the movies that are related to time travel in some sense.
Mhm.
The number of candidates is going to be 500. So it's going to like look at 500 candidates within the data set, and it's going to give out like 10 results out of it. So that's what this first layer of the pipeline is. And
Mhm.
the second layer of the pipeline is basically a projection. So
Mhm.
we don't want everything. So we're just going to like print out the plot, title, and the score. Score
Nice.
represents the distance between your query, which is time travel, and any one of the data set within the collection.
Mhm.
So we're just going to like run aggregate pipeline and then like print out the results.
Nice.
So let's save this and go ahead and run it. So as you can see, it
Mhm.
got back with a bunch of results, and you can also see that it's exporting the spans to the project, and it also gives you the link to the project, so you can just click
Mm.
through and go there. But here are the results, right? So it
Mhm.
shows like this is the plot and this is the score. So
Mhm.
this is the top match for the given score, and it's in descending order from there, like 10 results. So now if you go back to the project, as you can see, we've already got a
Mhm.
response back. So this is the trace, right? So we have the namespace. It tells you what vendors were used. Like I mentioned initially, we used OpenAI for the embedding, and we used MongoDB here. It shows the model that was used. In this case, the embedding model. It shows the input. So the input is time travel, which is the query. The output, there is more than one output there. So
Mhm.
we'll click through it and go through it. So these were the token counts. Cost is not calculated because it's an embedding. So we
Mhm.
go in here. This is like the trace view. So as you can see,
Nice.
this is like the top level trace, tells you exactly how much time your entire code ran. The
Mhm.
first one is for OpenAI. So if you hover over it, you can see a bunch of things, but you can also click through it. You can see this was the query, and it has all the attributes over here. So the model that was used, the inputs that went into the model for embedding, which is
Mhm.
time travel, tokens that were used, and things like that. And also, it gives you the version of Langtrace, version of OpenAI that's being used, and things like that.
Mhm.
But you go back, this is where the MongoDB call was traced. So as you can see, it exactly tells you what call it was. It was MongoDB aggregate. And then like if you go in here, it tells you under attributes, it shows all the indexes that were created, all the properties of the database. So the index was vector index, path was plot embedding, top K, limit, project details, and things like that. In addition to that, if you jump into events, it also shows all the matches over here. So it shows the traced matches. So how is this useful, right? So
Mhm.
let's say you have like a chatbot, like I said, going back to the chatbot example. Every time a customer comes into the chatbot, they are going to send a query. It's going to be embedded. It's going to be matched against a bunch of results in your MongoDB database, retrieved and given back to an LLM to transform it to natural language, and that goes back as a response to the user, right? So every time this happens, you would want to trace all the retrievals that were happening, that happened within your MongoDB instance, in addition to
Mhm.
what went into the model that came back as a natural language response. This way, you exactly know for a particular query which documents were matched within your MongoDB collections data set.
Mhm. Mhm.
And let's say, for instance, there is a document around pricing. For instance, the user comes in and asks a question about pricing. If the pricing document was not matched as the top result within your retrieval,
Mhm.
then it means you need to like go do some tweaking. You need to move some namespaces around and fix it. So that's kind of how this is like. This helps you. In addition to that, like I mentioned initially, we also trace a bunch of metrics. So if you go into the metrics tab,
Mhm.
let me go to the screen. So it's kind of because of
It's
my,
because you're zoomed in. Yeah, it's okay.
yeah.
You
So
can zoom
uh,
back out if you need to somewhere.
I mean, it's also because of my widescreen monitor. So
Yes, I love
so it
it.
shows some metrics over here, like the trace counts, input tokens, and inference metrics, and things like that. Going back to the traces tab, in addition to this, you can also do something like this. You can go into the MongoDB call. You can evaluate this call.
Mm.
You can tell how good this retrieval was. So you can create your own eval metric. So let's say retrieval, right? So retrieval is the metric. The category is vector database, and you can, let's say, you can score it between 0 to 2 in steps of 1.
Mhm.
Which means you can score it as 0, 1, or 2. Save this
Mhm.
metric, and now you can score it as 2, for instance. So it's a
Mhm.
good retrieval, so I'll score it as 2. When you do this and then go to the human evaluation section, select vector database here, you can see the confidence level. So the
Mhm.
confidence is like how many traces that were evaluated by total number of traces. So if you have 100 traces and you have evaluated 50 of them, and all 50 of them were evaluated to be 2 out of 0, 1, and 2, then you would get a
Mhm.
confidence of like 50%, right? So
Mhm.
because you have not evaluated all the traces. So that's
Mhm.
the confidence. This also gives like this gives the median and the average, and it also plots a trend of how the metrics has evolved over time. So that
Mhm.
this gives you an idea as to whether the tweaks that you're making to your retrieval pipeline is working or not. So whether it's like
Nice.
improving, regressing, and whatnot. Obviously, we have a bunch of other features like data sets, prompts, and settings. I won't go too deep into those, but
Mhm.
this, in a nutshell, is what Langtrace is all about.
Nice. So, besides the human evaluations, is there a way to like automate the
Yeah.
observability down the line once you've done your human part?
Yeah, great question. So we do support automated evaluations. So the
Mhm.
popular technique at the moment here is LLM as a judge. So the basic idea is LLMs are great at judging the work of another LLM rather than,
Mhm.
I mean, LLMs are good at giving out answers too, but they are much better at judging the answers of another LLM, right?
Mhm.
So with that insight into the picture, what a lot of teams have started doing is you can set up a basic Python script that evaluates the responses of a given vector database call or like a LLM output, and we do support that as well. It's more so code based, so you need to write
Mhm.
your own script. We provide
Mhm.
there's a bunch of information in our documentation, pretty easy to get started. Langtrace acts as a reporting layer for it, so we don't we are not very prescriptive as to how you do your evaluations, but when you are
Mhm.
done with your evaluations, you can report back the results to Langtrace, and Langtrace provides you with like a rich interface around how do you visualize them, like whether it's improving, regressing, plot lines, and things like that. So we do
Nice.
support that as well.
Nice, nice, awesome. There's a quick question here I'm going to put up on screen. Does MongoDB vectorize the existing database? So the the sample database that Karthik is using it already had those embeddings vectorized for him ahead of time because it's one of our sample databases. But you can, if you have existing data, you can vectorize that on your own using any model that you'd like. And store those embeddings in MongoDB. We also have a preview feature that is in private preview right now, where, in case you haven't heard, we purchased Voyage AI. So we have some embedding models that are going to be native inside MongoDB, and it will automatically vectorize as new data is being added. So look for that coming very soon. But yeah, the data that he's working with today was pre-vectorized for him.
Yeah.
Um,
One more thing that I would add here is one of the nice things with MongoDB is, like you said, you can vectorize an existing collections, which I'm not sure if other database providers have. Essentially, if you are doing it in a SQL way, you would have to create a vector table separately for a given table. And you would have to write like a query layer for the vector table separately and a query layer for the regular SQL table. In the case of MongoDB, the nice thing is you can use PyMongo. PyMongo works for both vector search as well as for like regular search, and it's like you can vectorize an existing data. It's as simple as just going to the cluster, going to the Atlas search tab, and clicking a few buttons. It gives you like a JSON option too that tells you exactly what kind of vectors you want to create, like whether you want to do cosine similarity, dot product, or something else, and just takes a few moments to like vectorize it.
Nice. Well, I'm glad that you had a great experience with it. That's one of the key features of MongoDB is being able to keep your operational data and your vector data all together in the same place and not have to go other places or bolt on solutions, etc. It's all just right there. So amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the future. What do you see coming in the near future for AI ops or AI in general?
Yeah, so in general, I feel like the going back to the right architecture for building AI agents, right? So I still feel we are at the earliest of stages right now. It's still very nascent as a space. Everybody is still like figuring things out. There was like a very interesting post about how Claude Code works. An ML researcher had like reverse engineered Claude Code, basically the Node.js package, deconstructed the bits and tried to like figure out what exactly is going on. One thing that you would see as a buzz is like, oh, the prompts have been leaked for Claude Code or Cursor or whatever. But to be honest, prompts is just like very small piece of the overall system. That's why like most of these companies don't even care if the prompts get leaked, because it's a much bigger system than that. And it's more around context engineering. Like I said, how do you whether you will provide all the context to a single LLM, or would you like break the context down to different parts and like bring in like multiple LLMs within your architecture. It's like very subjective in nature. And also things like tool calling, for instance. There are some open problems that exist with tool calling, for instance. Like if you are using tool calls that return a lot of data, like say for instance a massive payload of JSON. There is no way LLM handles today. An LLM's context window can handle that today. Obviously, you do see 2 million context windows and whatnot, but time and again, a lot of developers have proved that like if you stuff your context window too large, like it's just going to hallucinate. The general thought process for me here is, I think the space is evolving. People are figuring things out, and standards around how do you context engineer, how do you like balance between providing enough context versus how do you balance between providing enough freedom to the LLM versus like constraining the LLM such that it is like strictly guardrailed, is more of an art than skill right now. So uh, tooling for things like that is what I expect to see evolve, and that's also part of our roadmap for Langtrace in the future.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about the roadmap there. Is there anything any insight you can give us into what's coming up for Langtrace?
Yeah, so like I said, we are figuring out what's the best way to surface insights around how good your context is, to put it simply. And in order to do that, we build agents ourselves internally, because you don't want to, even though we got started because of solving our own problem internally, we don't want to go far away from the problem that we tried to solve just by building a product, not knowing what problems developers are facing exactly, and the problems also are also not consistent across developers. So we build our own agents, and we are trying to figure out, based on our experience internally, the biggest challenge today is, how do you give feedback to the developers that the product can be improved, your stack can be improved by either improving your prompt or improving your context or by improving your retrieval. How do you provide intelligent suggestions like that to the developer? At the end of the day, right now we are trying to provide as much information as possible such that developers can come up with the unique insights, but that needs to evolve to a future where developers need not figure out what exactly needs to be done. The system should be able to provide those insights back to the developer, right? So
Nice.
that's the area that we are currently thinking about. In addition to that, we are also, like I said, we are building AI agents internally. So in addition, we built a Slack bot. Again, it started off by us building a customer support Slack bot internally, powered using MongoDB Atlas Vector Search, where we have ingested all the documents, and it gives intelligent results based on the query. So we thought, okay, this is interesting. So maybe why not just expose a platform that lets anyone deploy bots on Slack that are basically AI agents that are equipped with B2B tools, popular B2B tools. And that's another product that we thought might be interesting. So we are launching that as well.
Nice. So as you're dog fooding your own product and you're building these agents to test things out, what's some advice that you would give to engineering teams that are listening when they're building their AI products? What's some advice you would give them to help them not go through the same growing pains or pain points that you came across?
Yeah, great question. I think, at least in my experience building AI agents, the closer you get to the bare metal, in this scenario, the bare metal is the model itself. The closer you get to the bare metal, better are the insights around how you would want to structure and design your overall architecture. Frameworks are great, but we are still nascent, and it's a great opportunity for anyone building to just pick up the native constructs, like the primitive constructs that are exposed by OpenAI and others, and build with those. It's the HTML era of AI that we are in. You don't want to be picking up React when you have when everyone is still figuring things out. For all you know, you would figure out something new that nobody knows about. That's been my biggest learning too. I picked up the native constructs initially, moved on to a bunch of frameworks, and then got back to the native constructs. By native constructs, what I mean is just building directly on top of models from scratch. So that's one thing that I would say. And secondly, obviously, put together a process. Think of it as an operational process rather than building traditional systems where you just build it, deploy it, maintain it, and move on. Which means doing the boring things like doing evaluations, tracing, a lot of things that developers don't necessarily enjoy. But that's kind of the key to building highly reliable products.
Does anybody in the audience listening like testing? Yeah, comment if you like testing. I hate it. But yes, but it is something that you have to do. You can't go out into production without testing it to make sure that it actually works properly. Of course, you'll find, like we said, that it's a process. You're going to find those edge cases, and it's just a process that you just keep going through over and over again.
Yeah.
And any thoughts on vibe coding and these vibe coding platforms like V0, Lovable, Bolt? Any, it would be amazing. I see all these really bad posts where someone has built this product and then it gets hacked, or it doesn't work properly, etc. Right? It would be amazing if level or if like Langtrace was built into some of these platforms, and it just like helped these vibe coders with observability and testing as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great suggestion. I'll think about that for sure. But generally speaking, vibe coding is kind of the way. Like even thinking outside of vibe coding, the way developers are building products today is just by prompting the agent, be it cursor agent or like Devin or whatever, like prompting
Hmm.
and then letting it do the work, and watching what it does. Right? There are pros and cons to it, but if you know what you are doing, like having said that, it doesn't mean that you cannot get away without knowing how to write code. I still feel
Hmm.
it's important,
Yeah.
because like your job as a developer has evolved from writing the code to reviewing the code written by AI, right? So
Hmm.
uh, if, like for instance, Claude 4 Sonnet, if you just like tell it to like go fix a bug, it has happened to me so many times wherein like I would just go tell Claude 4 Sonnet to fix a bug, and it would write like bunch of code to fix it,
Hmm.
like maybe 50 to 100 lines of code. In reality, it's just like a single line fix. I would just go back
Hmm.
and fix it. If you didn't know what you are doing, if you didn't know how to like read your code and figure out what exactly needs to be done, you would just end
Yeah.
up with a mess of a code base eventually.
Yeah, no, I agree. You still need to know how to code.
Yeah.
Vibe or these LLMs and these different platforms, I view them as tools. It's kind of like going from a hammer to a drill. Like you just have
Yeah.
a tool that makes you go faster, but you still have to know how to use that tool.
Exactly.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so let's start wrapping up here, and let's make sure that everybody knows how to find you, how to get started, etc. I think we have some links here. Let me put up the main Langtrace AI link is here. And then, like you said, it is open source. So there's the GitHub link, and like you said that right now we're still figuring things out. We're in this state where everyone can contribute. Like many of these frameworks, Langtrace itself is open source. It's like if you've got ideas, if you want to help, it's open source. Go check out the GitHub repos and help us define this ever evolving AI industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, contributions are welcome. We are fully open source. Reach out to us either through our Discord or through our chat on our website. It's mostly me responding to you on chat. We don't use AI to respond to customer chats, although we
Hmm.
do use AI to get responses, and we just like relay it back to the users.
Hmm.
So you can reach out to me. I'll just share my LinkedIn and my X handle as well, so you can feel free to connect with me and reach out to me. Happy to help you in whatever way I can.
Nice. And then what is Hey Zest?
Yeah, so Hey Zest is the platform that we are building. It's in like closed beta right now. You can think of it as like a platform that lets you build AI bots and deploy them in your own Slack workspace. It's like
Nice.
exclusively for Slack. You
Mhm.
can give these bots a bunch of tools. Like it can be your day-to-day tools. Like we do support MongoDB out of the box. One cool thing that we do is we don't write MongoDB queries anymore. We just like tell Zest, like we have built a bot with Zest that is integrated with MongoDB Atlas Vector Search. So you just go ping like Zest and say, hey, can you look up this particular answer for this particular question within your database, within your data set, and it will write the query. It is basically a tool, so it does a tool calling, it writes the query, gets the response, converts it to natural language, and sends it back on Slack. So you can create any number of bots like this. Like it can be for like day-to-day calendar and email management. It can be for like sophisticated tools like database queries. It can be for like lead enrichment. It can be for anything. So it came about again, like I said, we like to build agents to know exactly what sort of problems that developers are facing, so that we can go solve that using Langtrace. So that's how we built this thing, and we thought it could be useful to others as well. So it's just like a
Nice. Amazing. Well, yeah, go check it out. And then here is Karthik's information for LinkedIn and X if you want to reach out directly. And then before we wrap up, I just want to also quickly say hi to our viewers. We've got viewers here from Delhi, from Ethiopia, from Chandigarh, Mumbai, Bangladesh, Denver. Hi, Otto. India, San Jose, Casablanca, Surat, Kashmir. So amazing. Like a lot of people have joined us today. Anything, like, just to wrap up, anything that you want that we didn't cover that you want to say? You want to leave a note at the end here?
I think we covered most of it. I would just say check it out. Check out Langtrace. You can self-host it and use it for free if you'd like, or we have a pretty generous free tier. Check out Zest as well. If you use Slack and if you think it could be useful, just reach out. I'm happy to like set you up with access to it. But
Nice.
yeah, outside of that, if you have any thoughts, I'm always available on LinkedIn or X. Just like ping me, and I'm happy to like brainstorm and chat with you.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for joining us. We'll have you on again. And again, everyone, make sure to join us. The MongoDB podcast, we live stream every week. So on YouTube and LinkedIn. And so keep up with those. We always have on new guests, and we love talking about building things, especially in the AI world. So, all right, we'll see you again next time.
Thanks. Bye.